It was a dark and stormy night, nor'easter rolling in. It's a long 12 hours, the power's out again. I pray for inner strength and that we don't lose no lives. Just another day in the first responders' eyes. Half a cup of coffee's gone, the first run comes in. A car slid off the road, there's a family trapped within. My heart beats like a hammer, I can barely catch my breath. I'm thinking the worst and hoping for the best. Yeah, we ain't superheroes, we're just ordinary people trying to make a difference, and the first on every scene. It's a heavy, heavy burden to carry all this burden when you can't unsee the things you've seen. It keeps going on. When those sirens are gone. Now my shift is finally over, I gotta deal with what's mine and try to find a way to leave those tragedies behind. So I hug my 2 children, I kiss on my wife. Just another day, the first responder's life. Yeah, we ain't superheroes, we're just ordinary people trying to make a difference, and the first on every scene. It's a heavy, heavy burden to carry all this burden when you can't unsee the things you've seen. It keeps going on. When those sirens are gone. Flashing lights fill the air, broken bodies everywhere. Another bad dream is stealing my sleep. 'Cause we ain't superheroes, we're just ordinary people trying to make a difference, and the first on every scene. And it's a heavy, heavy burden to carry all this hurting when you can't unsee the things you've seen. It keeps going on. When those sirens are gone, it keeps going on. When those sirens are gone.
Welcome to the award-winning Mad Radio with John and Sam. We are your First Responders Network, and John is taking a break. We wish him well, and we want to just take a second and let all of the first responders know. I mean, you guys know we are not a political show. Some things have happened in this country. We want you to understand that you have a community that surrounds you. And we also want to let you know that we understand that there may come a time where you are asked to perform duties and functions in a different way, under a different set of leadership guidelines. And it may not always jive with what you were taught in the academy. It may not even jive with the Constitution of the United States that we live by. And we understand that you may be put in a very difficult position come the next bunch of weeks. And again, we just understand, we get it, and we're here for you, and we're praying for your safety every single day. So just wanted you guys to know that. On today's show, wow, we have got an incredible guest. He's got a military background, and he is the second fully commissioned officer as a double amputee in the United States of America. He's a dad to 4 kids. We just talked about how, there's no privacy, and me and John, we wanted to have this very first month of 2021 be all about inspiration. And his story is absolutely incredible. So without further ado, I'm going to bring Zach into the studio with us. Hey, Zach.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
Awesome. Well, Zach, you are a father of 4. You've got a very busy life. You're the second fully commissioned police officer that's a double amputee in the United States of America. That's something that doesn't happen often. And could you just take us through your story? How did you start? Like right out of high school, right?
Yeah, right after high school, I always knew I wanted to be in the military. That's family and friends that joined the Marines, so I was like, I kind of leaning more towards that way. My father served in the Army, so he was trying to get me to lean that way, but I knew I wanted to be a Marine. So yeah, right after high school, I enlisted, went to boot camp in San Diego, spent 2 years in Okinawa. From there, I volunteered for my first tour of duty to Iraq, and we were in Fallujah, and from 05 to 06, we came home. I was stationed in North Carolina. I volunteered to go back again in 07. So I went back to Fallujah, and, that's where I was injured 13 years ago.
Well, 13 years ago. So if you don't mind just taking everybody back to that day.
Yeah, sure. So we were 3 months into our deployment, and we lived out in town. So, it was rare that we really got to go to the base and, get a good meal, get a good shower. But at that night, we had somebody working with us who was a civilian employee. He lived on the base, so we were giving him a ride back to the base. We had a good meal. It was a good night. We were laughing, joking. On our way back home, I remember having a conversation with my guys. There was 2 other guys in my vehicle. You were having like, hey, what do you want to do tonight? Let's see if we can watch a movie. Let's see, I'm going to write a letter to my kids. Like I said, normal conversation. All of a sudden, we were hit with an IED. So turned out they were watching us from a building close by, and as soon as our vehicle got over it, they detonated the IED, and it happened to blow up right underneath where I was sitting. So it caused the amputation of both my legs. I almost lost my right arm as well. But fortunately, my guys were there on the spot to save my life.
Yeah. Now, were you traveling in a Humvee in an armored vehicle, or?
Yeah, we were in a Humvee. And the thing about it was I wasn't even supposed to sit in that spot that night. Before we left, I had convinced my buddy to switch seats with me for whatever reason. I don't know. Sometimes we would do that. But that night in particular, I wasn't taking no for an answer for some reason. So I finally convinced him to get out, and I got in. So, and I told those guys, like, I'm happy it happened to me and not them. Because I don't know. I know I would have done my job to help save them. But I don't know. I don't know if my heart could have taken it, to see one of them like that. But I'm just very grateful and thankful that they were there to, not hesitate and do what they needed to do to save my life.
Yeah. And so at this time, during the war, this many years, familiar with the IED danger, Were you guys aware of, that there could be possible IEDs where you all were traveling, or was this something that you didn't expect? Did you have any?
Absolutely. I mean, the whole time we're there, it was definitely a lot different feeling from 05, the first deployment to 07. It didn't seem as busy, where we're at and what we're doing, excuse me. But the way we're trained, it's you always have to be ready. You always have to expect that, there's something around this corner. And there would be signs, if the streets were busy, it's a good sign that, everything's going to be okay. But if that street's typically busy and then it's completely dead, and then you got to be like super high alert, like, okay, this is out of the normal, And we actually did have people sometimes stop us and be like, hey, we saw some people doing stuff back there, and we'd find something, So we were actually, very grateful for that. But, I think, like I said, we're 3 months in, we're just like, man, what do you want to do tonight? It's just like trying to be as normal as we can out there.
Sure. And so just like with police work, you've got that hypervigilance.
Right.
You have the training, the signs to look for, and then you're kind of driving and you're in it and you're looking around, and then boom.
Yeah, and then it just went off. So right away, I knew what it was, but I was in that dazed state because the way it felt like is like if you've ever been hit in the nose, it kind of like dazes you, kind of water your eyes a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what it felt, just magnified, by 100,000, whatever, you know what I mean? So it's like right away, I was like, oh man, we just got hit. And I remember thinking, I was like, man, are you guys okay? I remember talking to my guys. I asked them, are you okay? You're okay? They're like, yeah, we're fine. So very fortunately, they walked away without a scratch. I had a guy, my gunner was standing right next to me, and my driver, perfectly fine. They got treated for a concussion, but they were back to work. You know what I mean? It was after I'd asked them okay, and then they said I was on the radio, and I called it in and said, hey, this is where we're at. We just got hit. And then after that is when I started feeling like, man, something's not right. I felt a burning sensation on my lower half of the body, and then I felt it kind of sting. So I had no idea that my legs were gone. And then I remember, because I was awake for pretty much the entire time. I remember my gunner reaching down and grabbing my vest and holding me in because I was about to fall out of the door because it had blown off. It had blown open. And then I remember just talking to them. I was like, hey, let's go. So we had to drive out whatever we could, get as far away from that area as we could. And then I remember them getting me out, or trying to get me out. Once we got to a safe spot, they didn't know that what was left of my legs was caught in the floorboard. So it had mushroomed in. So the skin was caught in that floorboard. So as they pulled me out, they were actually ripping more and more. So I guess they said from my screams, they were like, hey, what is it? So they had to reach in and grab, my mangled legs and pull what they could out of the metal and then get me out on the street. So at this time too, they're having to watch their backs because like at a time like this is typical when you're getting shot at.
So you didn't lose consciousness.
No, not at that point. No.
Your legs are still attached.
No, actually. So what I was told is that one of the units responded afterwards said they found part of like my left foot in the back seat. My right foot was partially in the street. So they had actually given it to one of my guys and said, here, I don't know if there's any chance or anything, but here you go. So he handed him like my foot. And then, like I said, my arm was broken in half. So, I mean, it was pretty bad.
Yeah. Wow.
And at that point, like I had no idea the severity of it. You know what I mean? It was almost like, why are you getting me out of the street? Like, what's wrong? What's wrong? What's wrong? I'm constantly like asking them, am I okay? Am I okay? And then I do remember telling them like, hey, tell my son I love him. Tell my son I love him, because at that time he was only 2. So, I mean, obviously I didn't know if I was going to be able to tell him myself that again, if it happens, tell him I love him.
Right. Wow. And then, so they get you out and, is it like a full medevac back to the base, or did they just fly you out somewhere else?
So where we were at, you couldn't fly a helicopter in. So we had to wait for a QRF unit to come from the base to come get us. And then once they got there, they put me on a stretcher, loaded me up, and then we had to drive back to the base. But I remember, like, at that point, I remember them talking to me. One of my guys is holding my hand, kind of just reassuring me, like, hey, dude, you're going to be okay. You're going to be okay. And at that point is when I guess they said I stopped breathing, and then they were able to bring me back. My corpsman there, and all my guys really, but my corpsman was on the spot. He knew his stuff. It's like I said, I put every reason I'm here today is because of them. You know what I mean? And doing what they did. But yeah, I mean, I think they kept me alive. And then I remember waking up and I could hear people, but I couldn't see them. And I remember asking, hey, is Magoo here? Is Justin, my doc? We call him Magoo. Is Magoo here? And then they're like, yeah, he's here. But he really wasn't in there. They were just trying to tell me whatever I wanted to hear to calm me down. And then I remember getting to the hospital. I remember hearing them wheel me in, and then just everybody's shouting all this stuff, like medical terms and stuff like that. And I'm just freaking out, like, what's going on? What's going on? Am I okay? And then, of course, they're trying to reassure me. And then right away, I hear them like, hey, we got to take him in. We got to take him in, like, for surgery. And then I wake up on a helicopter in Balad, Baghdad, Germany. And then that's when I flew back to the States.
Okay, wow. So how much time, I mean, from the time that the IED, blew up, you guys drive out, then you stop.
Right.
They're trying to your guys are trying to take you out of the vehicle. You realize something's very wrong. How much time went by between that, getting the QRF to respond, and getting you into a safe place? How much time would you say elapsed from there?
From the time it went off, so I think they called them as soon as we had gotten hit. They had called for QRF. I mean, it was maybe about 20 minutes, maybe.
Okay.
25 minutes for them to get there, load me up, and get me back. But yeah, I mean, honestly, that part of it, I couldn't tell you.
Yeah, I mean, for everybody watching, it's just hard to believe that, listening to the magnitude of this explosion, and then like you did not lose consciousness until you were in the QRF vehicle, and then they realized what was going on. And was that purely because of blood loss?
Yeah, I think so. That and shock. Because I remember when my guys had me on the ground and it was just my guys there, I remember trying to sit up to see, and they kept pushing me down. So I kept trying to, I was like, I want to know what's going on. Like, let me know. Of course, they didn't want me to see it because that would add to, I guess, the shock factor. Right. And like I said, I had no idea the severity of it. I didn't know my legs were gone. I didn't know that, I just thought like we got banged up pretty bad.
So you make it to Bethesda, right? Eventually. Right. And so what happens there?
So there, my family was waiting for me there. So I thought I was going to be the first one to call home and say, like, hey, I was in an accident, but I'm okay. I just wanted them to know I was okay. But at that time, my mom had already received phone calls, from the military saying, and it was a bad way it happened. She got a phone call, and of course she starts to freak out because it's not me. It's from the military, but it's not me. And then I guess at some point during the conversation, before they say he's okay, the phone gets cut off. So they tell her he's been involved in an accident, in a severe accident. And then, so she's freaking out, like, is he alive? Is he dead? What's going on? So then my stepdad finally gets a hold of somebody, and they explain to him that I was in an accident. It was pretty bad, but I'm still alive, So they were able to get the message to them. And like I said, I thought I'd be the first one because I knew I could tell my mom, like, hey, it's going to be okay. I'm going to be fine, just to keep her from worrying so bad. So yeah, they met me there. I had surgery. I was there for about a month and a half. I'd had surgeries every other day. They were doing revisions and washouts. So it took a good beating on me there. And then that was more of when emotionally I was probably at my worst, because once I finally started to come to, it was like, man, where are my legs? Like, they were there a little while ago. And, I started getting in a funk of like, man, am I going to be in a wheelchair for the rest of my life? Am I going to be able to do anything for myself? Because at that point, everybody was having to do stuff for me, because pretty much I had one hand that was good. and it was my non-dominant hand, so I'm not used to doing anything with that. So I have literally every single thing that I needed. I had to depend on somebody else, and to me, that was a tough pill to swallow. You know.
Yeah, and you're an independent guy, and yeah,
Right. Yeah.
For sure, I can understand that. We've had, you probably know Lisa Ramsey.
Absolutely. Oh yeah.
Yeah, and so her story and the same thing, being not having the use of her legs, and it's like, how do I get the glass out of my upper cabinet
Right.
when I'm in the wheelchair, and having to rely on people to do the simplest things. And yeah, it's frustrating. Anytime you're taken out of something where it became easy, and so
Right.
for people that have, they get diagnosed with post-traumatic stress, or like even the concussions that you talked about, there's confusion. There's like, this just made sense last month or last
Right.
week or 2 hours ago, and now something's not right.
Right.
And so there's a process. And then on top of that, for you have the medications that you need,
Right.
and all the anesthesia, which I can only imagine how that kind of played with the brain fog. And I mean, were you when you came out of your surgeries, were you able to be like, okay, I see I don't have my legs, or were they trying to save your legs?
There was no saving it. They were already amputated by the time I got to. I think they finished the amputations in Fallujah when I got to that hospital.
Okay.
There was nothing to save there. They said it was no chance at all. But yeah, I mean, like, I don't know. So a lot of guys that I talk to that are like the limb salvage guys that try to hold on to what they have, they end up amputated anyway, because it causes them a lot of more pain in the long run, having to deal with all that. So I think I kind of look at it as a good thing. If it's going to happen, I'd rather it happen. I could start fresh, you know what I mean? And just keep on going with my new life.
Well, and you started fresh, and that's a fantastic outlook to have. But you just said it didn't start out like that. How did you, I mean, mind over matter. This is what, can pull us through.
Right.
Did you have, you're watching your family and your dad's experience in the Army? Did you guys ever talk about some of the bad stuff that could happen, and how to stay positive?
I really never wanted to bring it up around my family, because I didn't want them to have to worry any more than what they already were. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So like right before this happened, my father had actually passed away a week before I left to go back to Iraq. So we buried him, and then the next day I had to go back to North Carolina so I could leave. So I mean, that was an issue there too. And like I said, at that point, it was a very, like, emotionally, it was the biggest roller coaster I've ever been on in my life. Highs and lows. And like you said, your mind's gonna get you through it. And one of the things we've learned is, like, the worst disability to have is the bad attitude. You know what I mean? Because you have that, and then you just bring yourself down in a funk that sometimes it's hard to get out of. Sometimes people find it, they can never get out of it. One of the turning points for me was I was in the hospital, saw this magazine, saw a picture of a kid. He's like 5 years old. He's running down the hallway of the children's hospital on prosthetic legs, the hugest smile on this kid's face. And I sit there and realize, like, what am I complaining about? This kid is, has a huge smile on his face. He doesn't care that he doesn't have any legs. I'm sitting here whining and moping about I'm gonna be in the wheelchair for the rest of my life. You know what I mean? So right then I was like, I'm alive. That's my most important thing. Like, and then I started thinking, like, what does it teach my son if he sees me go through this and I just give up? So later on in life, if something happens to him, is he just going to give up because, hey, my dad did? Or is he going to look at it like, my dad didn't let this bother him, and he's been able to accomplish all this even with that?
Well, that's great. I mean, kids can be such a motivating force, and
right.
let's just continue to go with that. So now you've got this, I am going to get better for my son.
Mm-hmm.
to be an example. Did you get the prosthetics in Bethesda, or was that later?
That was later. So after I left Bethesda, I went to San Antonio to the Brick Army Medical Center at the CFI there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when we started doing more therapy, rehab, and then started walking. So I actually told them, like, hey, I'm going to be walking like soon, because my unit was still in Iraq. And I told them, I'm going to be walking by the time they come home. I want to be there when they get off that bus, and see the families for the first time. So we were able to arrange it. And then my guys kind of expected me to be there, but I made up a story. I was like, hey, man, I'm not going to be able to make it. There's a lot going on here. They're not going to let me travel. But I was already there waiting for them. And and this was 2.5 months after I lost my legs. So, I busted my butt pretty hard to be in a position, because I wanted them to see me like this didn't break me. You know what I mean? It maybe knocked me down a peg or two, but it didn't break me. I'm still here. We got through this together. We all came home. So yeah, I made that happen with the help of other people. But that was like awesome to see them, because the shock on their face, like, hey, you're walking, like, after all this. But it was pretty cool.
That's fantastic. And then, so let's fast forward a little bit. So when did you decide that it was time to transition out of the military? And when you decided to transition, was there a time that you were like, okay, now what? Or you knew from the time you were getting out, I am going to go into police work?
Well, I was an explorer for Fort Worth when I was a teenager. I had a lot of great influencers there. And I kind of made the decision too. It's like, man, I grew up, I think I'm gonna be a police officer, and I want to be a police officer in Fort Worth, because that's where I was born and raised. What in the beginning when I lost my legs, I was like, well, there goes that dream, because you can't be a police officer and you're missing both your legs. You know what I mean? But then it was a little while later, I joined the all amputee softball team. So it's a team full of amputee veterans. There's 3 of us that are missing both legs. Some guys are missing one, above the knee, below the knee. Some guys are missing their whole arm. Some guys miss hands. You know what I mean? So like, you get to meet these people. And Matthias, the other officer that you were mentioning, the Dove amputee officers, that's how I met him. He was my roommate on my very first trip. And then when I heard that he was doing it, and I was like, man, that's awesome. He made it. I was like, dude, we can do this. You know what I mean? So I definitely picked his brain a lot right before I went in, during the academy, and even afterwards. So I applied, tried out, passed everything. There was a hiccup in my paperwork, so I didn't make it that time. A few years later, I applied again, passed everything, and then after hoping, waiting, praying, they're like, yeah, you made it. I was like, awesome. So I get to start the academy finally. And then I was nervous. I was like, man, do people think it's gonna? Am I gonna be a hindrance to the other police officers? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Or am I gonna be? Is it a good thing that I'm here? You know what I mean? Because I knew in my heart I was there for the right reasons, and I had to show them that. But the whole time it was nothing but support from everybody there. When I had doubt that there may be somebody pull me aside that would say, like, maybe this isn't the job for you. You know what I mean? Just because of my disability. But like I said, everybody was extremely supportive. Lisa was amazing. She pulled me aside a few times just to check on me. But there's nothing bad I could say about the whole process. And so I still look at myself in the mirror in uniform, or I stare at my badge and like, this is mine. I finally have this thing. You know what I mean? And then to be out in the street, talking to people, helping people. One of the biggest dreams come true for me.
That's awesome. Getting through the academy, controlled tactics for me, my partner was 6'1". I'm 5'6". Okay. So everything that we did in there, I just was like, dude, can we do that? Just back off on the force. There was definitely, I had something to prove. I was the only female in my graduating class at Beltsville. Oh, wow. So when you had, and I had the doubts, like, did I make the right decision? You know, as I have bruises up and down my arms and everything hurt. Was there ever a time going through the academy, because you just mentioned, you know, hey, maybe this job isn't for you, that you had that doubt going through the back of your mind? And if you did, how did you pull yourself out of it?
So yes and no. A lot of it was kind of like, because our academy was like 9.5 months long. So there was times like, man, is this ever going to end? Or, you know, it feels like we're here forever. And I hadn't been in school in like 15 years. So it's like learning how to study again. So that was on my mind. Am I going to fail out academically because I don't have these study habits anymore? It's hard to go home. You know, I have a wife and 4 kids at home, to do the family thing, you know, dinner, help get them showered, sleep, ready for school the next day. And then I still have to study for, you know, tests that we have that week. And it's like, man, it's definitely draining. Physically, I had lost a lot of weight, so my legs were taking a beating. I'd have blisters on my stubs and my stumps, and then there'd be a lot of bleeding, a lot of swelling. So I just had to get through it. And then, you know, thinking like, man, is this what it's gonna be like the rest of my career? You know what I mean? Fortunately, at the end of the academy, right after we graduated, I was able to go get new legs in Seattle. So everything fits great now. Everything's going great. I definitely give a lot of credit to my classmates and instructors, because if they ever saw me kind of like I wouldn't say get down, but like where they can tell it's like I'm in a lot of pain, you know what I mean? Or something's kind of slowing me down a little bit. They'd be there to be like, hey, you okay? Let's go. What can we do to help you? Like, they didn't modify anything in the academy for me, but they were that push I needed every now and then, just to be like, hey, let's go. And at the same time, I was that for them too. If they were getting down, I'd run a little bit faster so they can see like, hey, I'm still going, catch up to me, you know, let's go. And absolutely 100% couldn't done it without my wife, you know, because at the same time she would see me come home and be kind of like, you know, so drained that, you know, I just kind of look dazed and confused, like I don't know what I'm doing. But you know, she was absolutely amazing, taking care of the house and the kids while I did this whole process. And she pretty much did it all on her own. And she, of course, was very encouraging along the whole way. So, I mean, like I said, absolutely amazing. Couldn't have done it without them.
That's great. Family support is so critical, especially during the stressful times, during the time there's doubt. And you know, on the show, we cover the good, the bad, and the ugly, and we talked a lot about not having family support when it comes to post-traumatic stress. You know, families saying the wrong things to make things worse. And okay, so you've graduated, you're now a police officer. I want to ask your brain health aspect, because everything that you went through, the concussive blast, the concussions that your whole team, including yourself, received, you losing your legs, going through all of the stress, getting through the academy, the academic stress, everything that had come up. Were there ever times where you revisited in your mind, you know, what happened to you, and did it cause any pause at all to you know, taking the next step?
No, I never really dwelled on it. I make it a point on my Alive Day every year, so the day I was injured. I mean, I text all my guys, so hey, another year down, man. Couldn't done without you guys. Love you guys. You know, appreciate it. You know, we stay in contact all the time, but that's really the only day I ever try to think about it. You know what I mean? It's never really bothered me, like emotionally or anything like that. Yeah, I mean, that's really the only time I ever think about it.
And what are the things that, go through your head on your Alive Day, other than being grateful that you're still here?
I mean, that's one of the biggest things, you know what I mean? because now I have 3 more kids than what I did before. I have a wife now, so it's like, I constantly sit back and just watch them. The kids are all laughing, joking, having a good time. We're sitting in the living room, everybody's in there. I just like to sit back and watch and just be thankful for the opportunity to still be here. You know what I mean? Because it should have been a lot worse than what it was. The EOD guys told my guys, like, we don't know why he's still alive. We don't know how he's still alive. And then it's just, there's a higher being than me that decides that, not me. So I don't know. I mean, I'm just thankful for it.
Yeah, there's a lot of there's a lot of research. I recently read in a book. A bunch of psychologists actually were contracted with DoD and did an entire program on happiness and optimism with the Army. And did you guys ever have any kind of resilience training, optimism training with in the Marines? Did you guys talk about that at all?
I typically, nothing against people who do it and it works for them. I try to stay away from like the group, what I mean? The kumbaya stuff.
Yeah, but in your training, like in your trainings, did they was that a part of it? Like, hey, you're gonna see some bad shit, and this is how, if you need to talk to somebody to process through it, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Like that was a lot in the workups prior to going overseas. We got stuff like that. Yeah, absolutely. And then even afterwards too, it's like, because a lot of people, this is when PTSD started more coming out, and they would push resources on this and that, but like I said, my thing was just hunting, fishing, sports. We get on a motorcycle, go ride, just clear your head, find something that you can do that relaxes you and you're not thinking about all this. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's amazing. And from working with Lisa, that's one of her biggest things is like get in that kayak and go fishing.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's in police work, we talk a lot about the timeline of police work and the things that happen, right when you graduate, and then the 3-year mark, 5-year mark. And by the 7-year mark, we have what's called USTAs. So I used to fish. I used to hunt, because everything about us has become the job. And it sounds like you have done an amazing job because of your experience in the military to kind of compartmentalize and be present with what is in front of you. And I love, watching your face as you talk about your family and your kids running around in the living room, and how important it is to stay present to those kinds of things, because while you might see them as small things, they're really not small things in the grand scheme of our lives, and they could be what keeps us alive.
Right. And like I said earlier, it's like, I want to be able to show them that, I've been through some very traumatic things in my life, but it didn't stop me. I mean, it may have took me back a minute, but it didn't stop me. I'm still able to accomplish all these things that I've always wanted to accomplish. And I told my son the day I graduated, him and my wife pinned my badge on me, and I hugged him and I said, you can do anything you want to do. Work for it. Don't expect anything, work for it. And you can do it. And it's like, I had trouble saying those words because I wanted him to feel, you know what I mean? And see like, hey, he did this. He's always wanted to do this. And he found a way to do it. You know what I mean? So it was kind of emotional for me to actually get to hold his face and tell him, you can do anything you want to do in life. You know what I mean? So that's been my big part of my message to anybody out there, no matter what it is. Don't let whatever you think it is that's stopping you actually be a hindrance to you. Like, if you want it bad enough, you can find a way to make it happen.
Yeah, that's great. And I mean, whether you want to or not, you're a role model for police officers, because if there's one thing, that I learned working in the adaptive community and volunteering my time is I have my post-traumatic stress BS, and it's like, I get out of bed, I put my feet on the floor and just be like, there is nothing to complain about today, Sam. You've been with people that have absolutely the right to complain.
Right. And I think there's always somebody out there who has it worse off than I do. So that kind of keeps me going too. I mean, I could have lost all 4 limbs at the same time and really be in a position of like, what do I do now? You know what I mean? I have buddies who lost all 4 limbs, or I have a buddy who lost both of his legs and his eyesight. So he's completely blind, and he's a double amputee Marine as well. So it's like, man, I give that guy so much props because now he has a family of his own and he gets around. He's very independent. So I was like, man, I'm I get to hug my kids every day because I still have my arms. You know what I mean? So it's like, I try to like look at the best of every situation.
Kind of put things in perspective, right?
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
The next step.
Yeah.
So what, I mean, there's so many messages in your story. Do you have a book planned?
See, I've been asked this a lot, and I've actually talked to my wife about it. I don't know. I wouldn't even know where to start. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, when you decide to start writing, it'll just come out, and
yeah,
I'm sure you've got some amazing mentors that are veterans themselves, that you can look to when it comes to writing a book, because there's so many incredible stories. Yours is absolutely just phenomenal. Your no quit attitude, and the way that, I always do my homework, and the way that the Fort Worth Police Department embraced you.
Mm-hmm.
The way that the police chief, that is quoted, and the articles that have come out, they're the thing I admire most about Fort Worth, and it's taken the PD, and it's taken a long time to get to where they are now, is that they look at the person.
Right.
And if the person with whatever they have can perform the job, it's like, bring it.
Absolutely.
Bring it. You deserve to wear the badge. And, starting with Lisa and now with you there, and you're going to inspire so many. You talk about the kid that you read about in the magazine. I mean, I wonder where he is today, running with the big smile on. Can you hear me?
Yeah, there it goes. Okay, sorry. It was having that clicking.
But no, thinking about,
I have that family feel here. You know what I mean? Like I said, they were hard on you during the academy, obviously, as they should be, because they want to push you. They want to make sure people are there for the right reasons, and that they can perform their duties well. Throughout the whole thing, though, you still feel that very supportive feeling. Especially graduation, you feel that family feel. You know what I mean? I can depend on you to be there for me, and the same, vice versa. You can depend on me to be there for you. But yeah, I mean, the support was absolutely amazing throughout the whole process.
Yeah. So you've got, being a veteran, you have a veteran community that surrounds and supports you. Now being part of the blue, being on that thin blue line, a big family and a community that supports what you do. Things are tough in this country. Not every city is like Fort Worth. Not every city is like a majority of cities in Texas, where you have support for the police department. What would be your message to departments like the NYPD that are facing, the defund the police, or in Chicago that you've got these men and women that crime is rampant, they're beaten down every day. What would you say to them?
So one of our instructors that stood out to me all year long, he taught our penal code class. He came in the room and asked us, why are you here? You know what I mean? So we were just like, a lot of people, I'm going to be a police officer. I want to serve my community. He was like, no, really think about the reasons why you're sacrificing all these hours. You're sacrificing your body. You're sacrificing, everything in your life to put in the work here. Write it down. So I was like, okay, cool. People wrote a couple things on their list. I wrote a whole page of my reasons of why I wanted to be here. He said, keep this with you. And I've carried that piece of paper every day from then, beginning of the academy. I carry it with me on patrol now. If I ever doubt myself for any reason, I'll look at it. Remember your why. Remember your why. And he always says, remember your why. So, I would tell them same thing. Remember your why. You know why you're here. You put in all that work to get here. Times are tough. You have people to your left, to your right. You have people behind you. You have people in front of you. Like, we can do this together. We can stick together. I know we're thousands of miles apart, whatever. I mean, just remember your why. I mean, that, like I said, I tell a lot of people that too for anything. Just remember why it is you want to do why you want to do what you're doing. You know what I mean? Hang in there. I mean, like I said, we haven't experienced a lot of that here in Fort Worth. But I do feel bad for them for having to put up with that. I don't know. Just hang in there, really, and remember why you're there.
Yeah, you find your why is key. We just a badge of honor is the program that we have for post-traumatic stress and suicide awareness program, and we started our workshop just last month with exactly that, and we had everybody write it down. And your message is exactly when things get tough, when you feel like there is no hope, when you are really down, when you're in that hole. Take out that piece of paper.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a great reminder. I mean, and it's like I said, it's right there with you. If you need that just little reminder, it's like, okay, cool. I got this.
It's it's those little things. Yeah. That matter.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, Zach, I can't thank you enough for taking the time out of your busy schedule, for taking your day off to be with us, to be with all of our viewers and our listeners, to share your story, incredibly inspiring story of hope, and to give people those messages, those nuggets that when things are really bad, it's okay not to be okay. Find your why and stick with it. And
absolutely.
Yeah. Anything else you'd like to say to wrap up?
Like we talked about the PTSD and stuff like that, people struggling, talk to somebody. Don't hold it in. Let somebody know, whatever it is you're feeling. You have people here for you. I'm here for you. If you find me somehow, I'm more than willing to talk to anybody. Just stay safe out there, and thank you for the opportunity to be on here. I'm looking forward, like I said, to serving my community. I don't think I could have picked a better profession.
Yeah. And how do people, we realize you're active. So how would somebody reach you? Are you active on social media? Or are you kind of, is there a different way?
I'm on Facebook and Instagram. My wife, of course, is like, she's my, I guess my press agent. I guess sometimes she's like, hey, don't push this. Don't do this. Don't do that. But yeah, I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. But like I said, if anybody reaches out, and I'm more than willing. I think you can just search my name and it's on there. But I'll talk to anybody.
Okay. Well, that's great. Everybody needs a way to connect, and the bigger the support system, the bigger the network, the healthier we are.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, there's people out here to talk to. Just talk to somebody.
Absolutely. Well, again, thank you so much, Zach, for taking time out of your busy schedule to be with us. You are in our thoughts. You are in our prayers. We hold you there so that everything will be safe. We thank you for serving the community of Fort Worth, and through your messages and doing shows like this and having your wife as a press agent. We're going to get you out there. To understand that the bigger impact
Right.
That you're going to have through your positivity, through your smile. And yeah, just thank you from all of our Mad Radio audience. And we look forward to following your career.
I appreciate that. Thank you again for having me. And like I said, I'm here whenever.
All right. You bet. Thank you so much. Be blessed. And most importantly, stay safe.
I will. You too. Appreciate it.
All right. Take care.
Bye.
All right, so that was Zach Briseno, Fort Worth police officer, second double amputee to become a commissioned police officer in the United States. What an incredible, inspiring story. Guys, if you're going to take anything away from this, find your why. It's scrolling across the bottom of the screen. I'm going to leave that there. Find your why, so when things get tough, you can take out that piece of paper, or maybe you write it on board. So, have it with you so you can look back. If you are in need of assistance, okay, www.abadgeofhonor.com. Scroll down, you'll see our partners, and we've got a ton of resources. Now, these folks, they've been vetted. We work with them. They were all out at our most recent workshop, and they are incredible resources for you. You can click on any one of their logos, immediately have their contact information to reach out. There's no need for you to suffer in silence, because you are not alone in this struggle. And if you are in a department and you want to bring a badge of honor to your department, we are currently scheduling workshops for the end of February and on. So visit abadgeofhonor.com, and when you reach out, your email will come directly to me. And so from everybody here at Mad Radio, from me, from John, all of the first responders out there, we love you. We think about you. We are praying for your safety every single day. And we want to end this show like we do most of the time, with the trailer from PTSD 911. This is a documentary that must be made, and it's incumbent upon us and our community to make that happen. So watch the trailer. If you'd like to help a Badge of Honor, help Mad Radio, or help PTSD 911, abadgeofhonor.com, click on Mad Radio. You'll see the donate button, and every penny goes to putting on our workshop so we can continue to assist our men and women in uniform. So until next week, stay safe, everybody. Sam out.
After working for 20 plus years as a police officer, not having backup is kind of scary. While I was trying to heal from the traumas that had put me in the position that I was in, I suddenly lost all the support of all the guys I worked with.
Just because we don't see it doesn't mean that we don't picture it in our head. I never thought that I would have to deal with that type of call, and I was not prepared.
I remember the moment I was like, okay, I was up all night. It was just trauma after trauma after trauma. You know, the novelty of the job wore off really quick.
They didn't offer any help. They said I needed to see a psychiatrist, that there was probably nothing wrong with me, that I was just being a baby about it.
I couldn't think of how to get help without ruining my job.
I know personally, on many occasions, that a police officer can go in and ask for help, and the chief of fire.
They forced me to resign because they just could not understand how that could have affected me since I was just a dispatcher.
I just thought to myself, if I can't do this job, what can I do? What else? I put all the eggs in this basket. Who am I if I'm not a firefighter?
I have, 4 years till retirement, and I gotta be okay, and I gotta make it.